The Galactic Music Council was the most feared and revered stage in the universe, a place where species came not to fight with weapons, but with harmony, rhythm, and the raw power of sound. The council chambers floated in orbit around a dying star, its red glow illuminating massive crystalline instruments and platforms that hummed with energy. Every alien delegate moved with confidence, radiating superiority, their eyes flickering with pride. Among them, humans were few, a fragile-looking species that had never been taken seriously. And yet, here they were, invited or perhaps tolerated, because the council, for some reason, wanted to see what humanity could do. Jax Harrow, the human chosen for the challenge, walked onto the stage, his hands brushing against the cold metal of the Xenotone, the legendary instrument said to control emotion across species. The Xenotone was enormous, its surface a mosaic of shimmering panels, vibrating strings, and crystalline keys that glowed like trapped starlight. Aliens who had mastered it before boasted of its complexity, claiming that no human could possibly understand the mechanics, let alone make music that would stir the council. Every eye in the hall turned toward him, some curious, most mocking, their thoughts loud in their expressions. "This is going to be easy," they whispered among themselves, "just another weak species failing spectacularly." Jax felt the weight of every doubt, every sneer, every whispered insult. Yet he also felt something else, a quiet, steady fire. Humans might have been underestimated, mocked, and even betrayed by the universe at times, but there was something inside them that could not be measured: ingenuity, resilience, and a will to create beauty in impossible situations. The council's expectations were set low, and that was precisely what he needed. If they expected failure, then his success would be all the more devastating. The alien audience's jeers were subtle at first, a twitch of a tentacle, a raised ridge along a neck, a sharp clicking sound that was their version of laughter. They whispered among themselves in alien tongues, doubting, smirking, and preparing for entertainment at humanity's expense. The Xenotone pulsed with energy, sensing the intentions of the players before it, reacting to arrogance and fear alike. Jax took a deep breath, focusing, feeling the vibrations under his fingertips. Every human who had ever doubted him, every moment in which humanity had been underestimated, fed his determination. Then came the first test, a note that echoed across the chambers. Jax struck a key, holding it longer than necessary. A ripple of resonance traveled through the room. Some aliens stiffened, others tilted their heads, surprised that a human could even coax a tone from the Xenotone. Murmurs began to rise. "Impossible," some whispered, though Jax paid them no mind. He had memorized the patterns, internalized the vibrations, and prepared a melody no one had ever heard. This was not about imitation, it was about innovation, a human approach to an alien instrument that could bend reality with sound. As the first few notes lingered in the air, the council members' skepticism grew into unease. Something about the vibrations was different. The sound seemed to reach beyond the ears, resonating in the chest, the mind, even in the heart. Jax's melody was not just music, it was a story, a warning, a promise that humans were not to be underestimated. Alien delegates who had scoffed at his appearance found themselves shifting in their seats, unable to tear their eyes away. The Xenotone itself seemed to respond, glowing brighter, almost approvingly, as if acknowledging the courage and creativity behind the notes. A tense silence settled over the council as Jax played the second sequence. The melody twisted and turned, gentle at first, then sharp, urgent, and commanding. Aliens began to whisper again, this time not with derision, but with growing fear and awe. A few delegates clutched their instruments, feeling vibrations that forced them to pause, to reconsider. Humans in the audience leaned forward, hearts pounding with pride and hope. For the first time, it seemed, humanity had seized control of the room without aggression, without threat, just through the resonance of creativity and courage. The Xenotone, sensing the intensity, began to respond in ways even the aliens did not expect. Panels lit up in cascading colors, strings vibrated with energy that defied gravity, and the air itself seemed to hum. Jax's confidence grew with every note. The aliens who had mocked him were no longer laughing. Some were frozen, unsure how to react, and others shifted nervously, realizing that the human before them was doing the impossible. The stage was no longer a site of human humiliation, It had become a battlefield of awe and emotion, and the human was winning. As the first movement ended, the room was silent. Not a sound, not a whisper, just the aftershock of resonance, like a heartbeat lingering long after it should have faded. Jax looked at the audience, feeling the weight of their stares, the tension hanging thick as smoke. He had survived the initial jeers, defied the aliens' expectations, and begun something far greater than music, a revelation. Humans were underestimated no longer, and the council had no choice but to acknowledge that what they had witnessed was extraordinary. And yet, this was only the beginning. The real power of the Xenotone, the song that would truly stun the universe, had yet to emerge. Jax took a deep breath, his fingers hovering above the keys, ready to play a melody that would not only awe but leave every listener forever changed. The challenge had begun, but humanity's triumph was still ahead, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The Xenotone was unlike any instrument Jax had ever encountered. Its sheer size and complexity were enough to intimidate even the most experienced alien musicians. Crystalline keys stretched across the platform, each one humming with a subtle, almost living energy. Panels shimmered with unearthly colors, pulsating with vibrations that could affect the mind, the body, even the emotions of every species in the room. Legends spoke of the Xenotone as a tool of universal influence, capable of bending hearts and minds, of drawing tears, laughter, and awe from every creature that heard it. And now, it was in the hands of a human. Jax approached cautiously, every step echoing in the vast council hall. He had spent weeks studying its holographic schematics, memorizing its patterns, and understanding its unique response to human touch. Still, nothing could fully prepare him for the reality of standing before the instrument. The aliens were watching intently, their eyes narrow, their posture rigid. They expected failure. They expected ridicule. But humans were unpredictable, and that unpredictability was Jax's greatest advantage. He placed his hands on the first crystalline keys, feeling a strange warmth that pulsed under his fingers. The Xenotone responded immediately, emitting a note so pure that even the skeptics among the aliens raised their brows. The sound rippled across the chamber, vibrating through the floors and walls, touching every listener. For a brief moment, the alien delegates held their collective breath, sensing the raw potential of the human playing before them. Jax's melody began simply, almost cautiously, yet each note carried an undercurrent of something profoundly human, emotion, courage, and a spark of rebellion. The Xenotone was not just an instrument, it was a challenge. Every alien who had attempted to play it had adhered to its known sequences, manipulating patterns that were already mastered over centuries. But Jax was different. He was not bound by tradition or protocol. He improvised, blending human intuition with a calculated understanding of the Xenotone's mechanics. Each note, each sequence, built upon the last, creating vibrations that the aliens could feel but could not predict. Some of the younger delegates stirred nervously, their antennas twitching in confusion as the music reached unexpected harmonics that no one had thought possible. Jax's human audience held their breath, tense with anticipation. They had seen their planet ravaged, their species mocked, and their capabilities underestimated countless times. Now, in this chamber, a single human was showing them that they could defy expectation. The first wave of music rippled outward, carrying not only sound but confidence. The humans had no weapons, no massive fleets, only a melody that drew attention, evoked emotion, and demanded respect. Every note struck was a statement. Humanity had the capacity to astonish, even in the face of ridicule and doubt. Alien whispers began to spread through the council. "Impossible," one muttered. Another clicked sharply, a sound of confusion and incredulity. The Xenotone had reacted to Jax's improvisation, producing harmonics that resonated deep within their physiology. Some delegates felt emotions they had not known existed, strange and raw sensations they could not easily suppress. Pride, fear, awe, and even sorrow coursed through the room as Jax continued, each sequence growing bolder, each note more commanding. The music was no longer just a test, it was a revolution. The tension in the chamber was electric. Some aliens tried to regain composure, to scoff or look away, but the Xenotone carried a power beyond arrogance or disbelief. Every vibration touched them in ways they could not ignore. Their mockery faltered, replaced by an uneasy curiosity. Even those who had believed humans weak could not deny the influence of the music. Every movement, every gesture of Jax's hands, was precise yet instinctive, blending calculation with emotion in a way that the Xenotone itself seemed to recognize and respond to. As the initial melody reached its peak, a subtle glow emanated from the instrument, enveloping the council hall in shimmering waves of energy. The aliens felt themselves drawn into the music, their focus entirely on the sound, their preconceived notions dissolving with each vibration. The audience of humans, though small, erupted quietly in anticipation, sensing that their champion was on the verge of something extraordinary. The Xenotone was no longer just an instrument, it had become a bridge between species, a tool of revelation, and a testament to human ingenuity. By the time Jax concluded the first movement, the alien delegates were stunned. They had come to mock, to witness failure, and to reaffirm their superiority. Instead, they had encountered a human who could bend the Xenotone to his will, whose music transcended the expected limits of the instrument, and whose performance resonated deep in their hearts. The council chamber was silent, a rare and powerful quiet that spoke louder than any words or gestures. Humans had proven that they could do the impossible, and the universe would never look at them the same way again. Jax looked across the room, feeling the energy of the Xenotone surge beneath his hands, knowing this was only the beginning. The true power of his song, the sequence that would stun the entire galaxy, was yet to come. The stage was set, the audience captivated, and every alien watching would soon understand that humanity had arrived, not as the weak species they expected, but as something extraordinary. The council chamber was thick with anticipation as Jax Harrow positioned himself before the Xenotone once again. The alien delegates, still recovering from the initial display, were unsure whether to expect brilliance or failure. Some shifted nervously, whispering in alien tongues, their confidence shaken. The humans in the audience leaned forward, hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. This moment was pivotal, not just for Jax, but for the entire human race. If he failed now, it would confirm the galaxy's long-held belief that humans were weak. But if he succeeded, the consequences would ripple far beyond this chamber, reaching the stars themselves. Jax's fingers hovered above the crystalline keys, feeling the vibrations thrumming beneath them. He had memorized every resonance, every subtle pattern, yet he did not intend to play as any alien musician had before. The Xenotone demanded precision, but it also responded to emotion. Each note could convey courage, defiance, sorrow, or triumph. Jax focused on one truth. This music was not just for him, it was for every human who had been underestimated, every life lost to ridicule, and every soul that had been told their species was insignificant. The first note left his fingertips like a pulse of pure intent, filling the chamber with a sound so delicate yet commanding that the aliens instinctively straightened in their seats. At first, the melody was simple. Jax allowed the Xenotone to hum with gentle, probing tones, testing its responses, letting the sound ripple through the air like waves across water. The aliens, many of whom were accustomed to complex harmonic structures, initially dismissed it as naive simplicity. They had expected a frantic, clumsy attempt, perhaps some basic imitation of alien melodies. Instead, what they heard was clarity and precision, an elegance they had not anticipated from a human. Whispers spread through the chamber. Interesting, some said. Unexpected, murmured others. The first ripple of doubt had begun. Jax increased the complexity, layering harmonics and subtle rhythms, drawing on the Xenotone's full range. Each note resonated in ways that touched both the physical and emotional senses of every species present. Aliens felt warmth, tension, and unexpected nostalgia stir within them. Some clasped their hands to their chests, uncertain how to contain the emotions swelling inside. The Xenotone responded dynamically, amplifying Jax's intent with shimmering vibrations and glowing panels. The music was alive, and the room was becoming part of it. Tension grew as the melody shifted. Jax introduced sequences of unexpected intervals, moments where the sound seemed to bend space itself. The alien delegates' faces betrayed astonishment, confusion, and even fear. Their arrogance faltered under the subtle power of a human who dared to play with creativity, courage, and instinct rather than protocol. Murmurs of dissent and admiration mingled across the chamber. Humans watched silently, their eyes wide, holding their breath, sensing that something extraordinary was unfolding. Then, the melody reached its first crescendo. Vibrations radiated outward, striking the walls, floor, and ceiling, shaking the council chamber with an invisible force. A few of the aliens instinctively recoiled, while others clasped the edges of their platforms for stability. The Xenotone pulsed in response, recognizing not only the skill but the audacity behind the notes. This was not imitation, this was creation, a human signature imposed upon an alien instrument designed to dominate emotion itself. The room was transformed from a theater of judgment into a cathedral of wonder, where every listener felt the weight of something new and extraordinary. Jax continued, allowing the melody to flow seamlessly, alternating between moments of calm serenity and sudden bursts of dramatic intensity. The aliens could no longer dismiss him. Each note revealed intention, intelligence, and emotion that they could not comprehend fully. Subtle harmonics caused tears to form in the eyes of some delegates, while others felt courage and hope they had never known. The music was bridging the unbridgeable, the species divide, showing that humanity possessed a unique power that was neither technology nor weaponry, but something far more profound: ingenuity, heart, and spirit. By the time the first sequence concluded, a hush fell over the chamber. The Xenotone's final vibrations lingered in the air, vibrating through bones, hearts, and minds alike. Alien delegates, once mocking and confident, now sat in stunned silence. They had come expecting failure, ridicule, and amusement, yet they had witnessed a human mastery that challenged everything they thought they knew. The council hall was transformed, not with destruction, but with awe, respect, and something almost like fear. Jax looked out over the room, feeling the pulse of the Xenotone beneath his fingertips. This was only the beginning. The melody he had begun would grow, twisting and turning in ways no alien had ever anticipated. What they had seen so far was merely an introduction, a subtle demonstration of humanity's untapped power. The real song, the one that would echo across the galaxy and leave every listener forever changed, was yet to come. The first notes had been played, and the universe had already started to tremble. The chamber had fallen into a quiet, so profound it felt as though even the stars outside had paused to listen. Jax Harrow's hands hovered above the Xenotone, poised to continue. The first notes had unsettled the aliens, but now the true power of his music would emerge. This was not a performance of skill alone, it was a revelation of human ingenuity, emotion, and courage. Every alien delegate, once smug and dismissive, was now alert, their attention captured by the subtle vibrations that seemed to resonate directly with their very beings. Jax began the next movement with a deliberate, steady rhythm, each note carefully chosen yet flowing with instinct. The Xenotone responded instantly, its crystalline panels glowing brighter, strings vibrating in a pattern that no alien had ever mastered. The sound twisted and turned, a combination of harmony and tension that created an emotional resonance no single species could resist. Aliens felt their hearts pound, their minds stir, and emotions rise that they could neither predict nor control. Some trembled involuntarily, realizing that humans, fragile and underestimated, were commanding the Xenotone in ways they never imagined possible. The music grew bolder. Jax introduced complex sequences, rapid trills, and subtle dissonances that forced every listener to pay attention. Alien delegates whispered in alarm, some trying to maintain composure while their bodies betrayed their astonishment. A few instinctively covered their ears, only to realize that the sensation was unavoidable. The Xenotone carried not just sound but energy that penetrated the body and mind. Humans in the audience leaned forward, captivated and proud, sensing that their champion was no longer merely performing, but transforming the council's perception of their entire species. Some of the older alien delegates attempted to dismiss the effect, claiming that it was a fluke or trickery. Yet as the melody wove itself into complex patterns, even they could not ignore the raw power of the music. The Xenotone responded dynamically to Jax's intent, amplifying emotion, echoing courage, and striking awe into every corner of the chamber. Aliens who had mocked humanity began to feel vulnerability and humility, a sensation unfamiliar and deeply unsettling. The song was not just entertainment, it was a challenge to their arrogance, a reminder that humans were unpredictable and extraordinary. A sudden surge of sound pulsed through the hall as Jax entered the climax of the piece. The melody soared, twisting around harmonics that seemed to dance with the very energy of the Xenotone. The alien delegates, unable to resist, felt their own emotions laid bare. Tears appeared in some eyes, while others experienced a strange warmth, a mixture of admiration and fear. The music was alive, bending perception and challenging notions of superiority. Humans, though small in number, radiated a power that was unquantifiable: creativity, resilience, and indomitable spirit. Tension reached its peak as one ambitious alien delegate attempted to interfere, sending a pulse of energy to disrupt the Xenotone. Jax's hands moved faster, anticipating the sabotage, countering every interference with precision and emotion. The Xenotone responded in kind, creating a symphony that overpowered the alien's attempt, leaving the saboteur flustered and exposed. The other delegates watched in stunned silence, realizing that this human not only played the impossible but did so with a confidence and adaptability no alien could match. By the time the final sequence of the movement approached, the Xenotone radiated a light so brilliant it seemed to fill the chamber with energy. The alien delegates were captivated, their eyes wide, their previous mockery replaced with awe. Even the most skeptical were speechless, unable to articulate the experience. The humans in the audience, though exhausted with anticipation, cheered quietly, their pride swelling as the melody continued to unfold. Jax's performance had evolved into a phenomenon, a display of human ingenuity and courage that no species could ignore. The last note lingered, resonating through the council hall like a heartbeat, vibrating in bodies, minds, and hearts. The aliens were frozen, unable to move, to speak, or even fully comprehend what they had just experienced. Their assumptions about humans were shattered. The Xenotone, a symbol of alien superiority, had been mastered by a human who was underestimated at every step. The chamber was silent, save for the faint hum of the Xenotone's energy, a hum that seemed to declare humanity's arrival in the galaxy as something not to be mocked, but respected. Jax lowered his hands, feeling the instrument's final resonance settle into a calm, shimmering glow. He looked across the audience, noting the astonishment, fear, and admiration reflected in alien eyes. This was no longer a challenge. It was a transformation. The song had revealed that humans were not merely another species, but a force of creativity and spirit that could touch even the hearts of those who once thought them insignificant. And as the council absorbed the power of the music, one truth became clear: the universe would never underestimate humanity again. The notes of Jax Harrow's Xenotone performance did not end with the council chamber. Vibrations carried across the instrument's resonance networks, spreading through communications relays, interstellar channels, and even the subspace frequencies that connected distant worlds. Aliens on neighboring planets, in ships orbiting dying stars, and on remote stations felt the subtle hum of the human's music, an echo of courage, defiance, and raw emotion that no one had predicted. The song traveled faster than news, reaching every corner of the galaxy and awakening curiosity, wonder, and for some, a fear they could not name. The Galactic Council itself was still recovering from the immediate performance. Some delegates stared blankly at one another, their minds reeling. How could a human do this? Whispers spread among the older species, the ones who had scoffed at humanity for centuries. The song was no longer entertainment, it had become a force of revelation, demonstrating that humans were far more than weak, insignificant creatures. Across the galaxy, ambassadors and envoys began to question long-held beliefs about humanity. This species, small and underestimated, had found a way to manipulate the very fabric of emotion across species, wielding it with grace and precision. Jax, still standing on the stage of the Xenotone, felt the subtle shift in energy around him. The council was silent, but not in judgment. It was the quiet of awe. The humans in the audience exhaled in relief and triumph, proud of what one of their own had accomplished. Even in the midst of the aliens' astonishment, some subtle doubt lingered. Not every delegate was willing to admit their surprise openly. Some whispered to their neighbors, planning ways to undermine or discredit the performance, fearing what it might mean for their species' dominance. But the music had already changed the conversation. It had rewritten the narrative about humans across the stars. Far from the council, stories began to spread. Ships in distant systems intercepted the resonance of the Xenotone and reported back to their superiors. Entire colonies paused their routines, listening as the music reached them through transmissions. Aliens who had never encountered humans felt a strange mixture of emotions: curiosity, awe, and the beginning of respect. Across planets and space stations, communities debated what this meant for the human species. How could beings they had dismissed for centuries suddenly command a universal instrument with such precision, courage, and emotional depth? Some aliens tried to explain it away. They argued that it must have been a fluke, some anomaly in the Xenotone, or perhaps an unseen interference. But as the melody persisted and spread, the undeniable truth became clear: humans were extraordinary. The song itself seemed to awaken latent potential, a subtle recognition that this species had a capability no one else could match. It was more than skill. It was creativity, ingenuity, and a courage born from constant adversity, a force that could not be measured by technology or physical strength alone. Within the council chamber, tensions mounted as delegates debated how to respond. Some wanted to acknowledge humanity's achievement openly, to recognize that the Xenotone had been mastered by a species they had long dismissed. Others feared the consequences of admitting the truth, worried that this demonstration of power and ingenuity might shift alliances, challenge hierarchies, or inspire unrest across the galaxy. But even among skeptics, the effect was undeniable. Every alien who had heard the song felt a subtle change, a new awareness of what humans could accomplish when underestimated. Humans in the audience began to understand the larger impact of what had occurred. The song was not just a victory for one individual, it was a statement to the galaxy. Humans could not be ignored, mocked, or underestimated. It was proof that even the smallest, seemingly weakest species could create something extraordinary, something that could move entire civilizations and challenge the arrogance of those who thought themselves superior. The Xenotone had become a tool not of war, but of revelation, showing the galaxy that humanity possessed a strength beyond brute force: creativity, courage, and heart. As Jax concluded the extended sequence, the council hall fell into a reverent silence. The Xenotone's glow dimmed, but the resonance lingered in the minds and hearts of all present. Across systems, the music continued to ripple through communication networks, reminding everyone that humans had arrived not merely to participate, but to change the perception of the entire universe. For the first time, the galaxy truly saw humanity for what it was: a species capable of inspiring, influencing, and surprising even the most advanced civilizations. The stage was set for a new era. Humanity's potential had been revealed, not through conquest, but through courage, creativity, and the audacity to play what no one thought they could. And somewhere, across the infinite reaches of space, the ripple of Jax's Xenotone continued, touching hearts, minds, and souls, leaving a lasting impression that no alien, no council, and no skeptic could ever erase. The chamber was still vibrating with the aftereffects of Jax Harrow's performance. The Xenotone, now glowing softly like a distant sun, had completed its resonance, but the impact was far from over. Alien delegates, once arrogant and dismissive, sat frozen, their thoughts tangled between disbelief, awe, and a reluctant acknowledgement of human brilliance. Every eye, antenna, and sensor focused on the human before them, the one who had defied centuries of mockery and expectation with nothing but melody, courage, and instinct. Jax's chest rose and fell with steady breaths as he surveyed the council. This moment was larger than music. It was a declaration. Humans, underestimated across the galaxy, had demonstrated that their creativity and resolve could rival, even surpass, what countless other species considered the pinnacle of intelligence and skill. The Xenotone had amplified not just his notes, but the essence of humanity: resilience, ingenuity, and the willingness to confront the impossible. A murmur ran through the audience, a mixture of awe and fear, as delegates realized the implications. The music had traveled beyond the council chamber. Across systems, on ships and colonies far from the orbiting council, transmissions of the performance reached every listener. Alien societies began to react, some with admiration, some with disbelief, and a few with trepidation. Jax had not only stunned the council but had altered the perception of humanity for the entire galaxy. The narrative that humans were weak, fragile, or unremarkable was shattered, replaced by a new understanding. Humans were a force of unpredictability, creativity, and emotional resonance that could not be ignored. Back in the chamber, some of the older delegates tried to maintain dignity, but it was futile. Their attempts to mask astonishment faltered under the lingering resonance of the Xenotone. Younger delegates, once skeptical, were openly discussing the performance, trying to analyze how a single human had managed what countless species had failed to achieve. Questions arose. How did he master the Xenotone so quickly? How could one species wield emotion in a universal instrument better than all others? The answers were simple, yet profound: courage, creativity, and a will to rise above expectations. As Jax stepped away from the Xenotone, humans in the audience erupted quietly into cheers. The sound was cautious, respectful, but filled with pride. They understood that this performance was not just about music, it was a symbol, proof that humanity's potential had no bounds. Across the council hall, alien delegates began to nod, murmur, and exchange looks of grudging respect. Some even approached Jax, their gestures a mixture of apology and admiration, acknowledging the genius and bravery of a species they had long underestimated. The council convened an emergency session to address the unprecedented event. Recommendations were made to recognize humanity formally, to grant them respect and influence in decisions that had been denied for centuries. Debates flared, as some aliens feared that admitting the truth might upset hierarchies, yet the evidence was undeniable. Humans had proven themselves extraordinary, not through force, weapons, or dominance, but through courage, creativity, and mastery of something considered impossible. Jax, aware of the shift, remained humble but resolute. He had not sought fame or power. His goal was to show the truth of humanity, to reveal that being underestimated could be transformed into the greatest advantage. As the council debated, he realized that the performance had sparked something far larger than music. It had ignited curiosity, respect, and perhaps even fear of underestimating humans again. Across the galaxy, species would now remember that humans were unpredictable, innovative, and capable of achieving the impossible. The final moments in the chamber were quiet, yet heavy with significance. Aliens, once filled with doubt and derision, now sat in contemplation, some moved to tears by the resonance they had felt. Humans, once mocked and dismissed, now stood taller, their pride reflected in every eye-watching Jax. It was a transformation of perception, a shift in power that required no violence, no coercion, just the courage to play, the wisdom to understand, and the heart to perform. As Jax left the stage, the council chamber remained silent, not in judgment or dismissal, but in reverent acknowledgement. Across the stars, transmissions of the Xenotone's melody continued to echo, spreading humanity's triumph far and wide. The galaxy had learned a truth it could not forget: humans were no longer the underdogs. They were a species of creativity, courage, and unpredictability, capable of inspiring awe in even the most confident and powerful civilizations. The universe had witnessed humanity's triumph, not with explosions or conquest, but with music that transcended species, challenged assumptions, and resonated in the very hearts of all who listened. And somewhere in the stars, the echo of Jax Harrow's Xenotone continued, a timeless reminder that humans, underestimated and overlooked, could achieve the impossible. The challenge had ended, but humanity's legacy, the proof of their extraordinary potential, had only just begun.